And we kickstart this newscast with Prime Minister Modi's visit to South Korea, as India and South Korea have finally issued a joint statement with focus on terrorism in the aftermath of the deadly Pulwama attack. Speaking at a joint press conference a little earlier today, Prime Minister Modi thanked the South Korean president for condemning the Pulwama terror attack that killed 40 Indian CRPF personnel on 14th of February this year. The two countries also signed an MOU on counter-terrorism. Earlier, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is on a two-day state visit to South Korea, was accorded a ceremonial reception at the executive office and official residence of South Korean head of state in Seoul.
पुलवामा में हुए आतंकी हमले के बाद राष्ट्रपति मून के संवेदना और समर्थन के लिए, उनके इस संदेश के लिए, और अभी भी उन्होंने इस बात का जिक्र किया, मैं इसके लिए हृदय से उनका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। हम आतंकवाद के खिलाफ अपने द्विपक्षीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सहयोग और समन्वय को और अधिक मजबूत करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। आज भारत के गृह मंत्रालय और कोरिया की राष्ट्रीय पुलिस एजेंसी के बीच संपन्न हुआ MOU हमारे काउंटर टेररिज्म सहयोग को और आगे बढ़ाएगा। और अब समय आ गया है कि वैश्विक समुदाय भी बातों से आगे बढ़कर इस समस्या के विरोध में एकजुट होकर कार्रवाई करें।
Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had also visited the Seoul National Cemetery. Modi paid tribute to the memorial monument for war heroes who were killed in the Korean War. Modi is visiting South Korea on an invitation from President Moon Jae-in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be honoured with Seoul Peace Prize from the Seoul Peace Prize Cultural Foundation today. The visit comes less than a year after President Moon Jae-in visited India. And to add more perspective to Prime Minister Modi's visit to South Korea, I'm joined in by Principal Diplomatic Correspondent Siddhant Sibal, who joins me live from New Delhi. Let's quickly go across to Siddhant. Siddhant, a very good morning to you. And speaking about Prime Minister Modi's visit to South Korea, we just heard him address the presser. It's interesting to note how he's laid emphasis on technology, and at the same time, he's taking the counter-terrorism agenda with South Korea forward.
But of course, technology comes hand in hand when we speak about South Korea, and we know how the Indian Prime Minister has been focusing on Startup India. Yesterday only he launched the India-South Korea Startup Hub when he was addressing the South Korean businesses. But yes, of course, terror remains a dominating agenda for New Delhi in the aftermath of the Pulwama terror attack, the worst on Indian soil in over 2 decades. We have seen three visits, basically 2 incoming visits: the Argentinian president's visit, the Saudi Arabian prince's visit, and of course the Indian Prime Minister now in South Korea. And clearly the emphasis and the focus from New Delhi was on the issue of terror emanating from Pakistan, and that is what the Indian Prime Minister has been focusing, as he just said a short while ago in South Korea, that the world should speak in one voice. He basically meant to say that the CCIT, the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism in the United Nations, should be passed as soon as possible, because that convention basically calls for a common definition on terrorism, something that India has been trying to focus on, form a consensus since last 2 decades. But now there is an urgency from New Delhi side in the aftermath of Pulwama attack, and that is why the Indian Prime Minister has been, whenever he has been speaking since the aftermath of Pulwama attack, whether it's standing beside the South Korean President Moon Jae-in, or standing beside the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or the Argentinian President, he has been talking about terror, and that will be New Delhi's focus as long as Pakistan is isolated. We know that New Delhi has already briefed world capitals and foreign envoys here in New Delhi about Pakistan's involvement in the Pulwama terror attack, and has prepared a dossier also. Today, interestingly, the FATF meeting ends, and there will be a briefing by the president of the FATF in Paris at around 2:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and that will be something that everyone will be clearly watching, because the continuation of Pakistan on the grey list is something that New Delhi has been focusing for a long time, and New Delhi's next step is to make sure that Pakistan goes in the blacklist of the FATF.
Right. Siddhant, speaking of counter-terrorism measures, it's also important to talk about how South Korea is actually aiding India in strengthening its Indian army, because let's not forget the defense sector, it's actually playing a very, very important role and is heavily dependent on South Korea at the moment.
Well, yes, as we heard the Indian Prime Minister speaking about the K9 Vajra during his press statement, but defense is something that has been focused with other countries in the region as well. Cooperation with the Saudis. Also, India announced a joint naval exercises between Riyadh and New Delhi, which will take place this year. And we know both the sides agree that Saudi Arabia and India can be the net security provider in the region. But talking about South Korea can help in India's Make in India program, the Make in India defense, and that is where South Korea fits in the larger canvas or the picture of the Indian foreign policy, because we have seen over the year India has not only aligned its foreign policy for a domestic need, but made sure the countries are invited to take part in the flagship programs such as Make in India, Digital India, and in all these programs, there is Make in India, Digital India, Smart Cities. South Korea can be a major player. We know that the Indian Prime Minister, when he was speaking at the business leaders meet yesterday, or the Indian community, or at the university in Seoul, he basically emphasized how India will be the third largest economy in few years' time and will be joining the $5 billion club. And for that, it needs help of growing and big economies. Countries who have already gone through that stage, such as South Korea, to help New Delhi in its ambition to be not only one of the largest economies, but one of the most efficient green economies on this planet.